My name is Jessica Carter. I'm 42 years old, and until this week, my family hadn't seen me since I was a teenager. Back when they told anyone who'd listen that I was just another burnout who washed out of Houston Community College and fell off the map. As far as they knew, I'd ended up in rehab for a drug problem they invented, a sad explanation for why I never came home for the holidays, why nobody ever saw my name in the family business or at any local church fundraiser. The irony isn't lost on me as I stand in the pale Texas morning, double-checking the straps of my bulletproof vest in the parking lot of the Dallas Federal Courthouse. All around me, the city is waking up, reporters crowding the courthouse steps, U.S. Marshals in pressed uniforms, FBI agents talking quietly into their earpieces. I blend in perfectly, just another cop in a sea of authority. No one here knows that I'm about to testify against the Carter family, the same people who raised me, the same people who wrote me off as a disappointment before I even had a chance to prove them wrong. What none of them know is that for 3 years, I've been at the heart of the biggest federal racketeering case Texas has ever seen. And I'm the lead witness. Tonight, my family still thinks of me as a ghost, a failed daughter who vanished into a cloud of shame and bad decisions. Tomorrow, they'll know the truth. I'm the detective who brought down their empire. It didn't have to be this way, I think, as I shuffle through my case files for the 100th time. It's a nervous habit, double-checking every detail. Nerves aren't usually my thing, not after 2 decades on the job, not after all the danger and late nights. But this is different. Testifying against your own blood isn't like busting a drug ring or rounding up gang members in the 5th Ward. This is personal. This is history. When I was 19, working nights and sleeping for hours a day, I kept my head down and my grades up. I dreamed of being a cop since the first time I saw a police cruiser roll through our neighborhood, lights flashing blue against the Houston sky. I knew it wouldn't be easy, but I believed, maybe foolishly, that if I worked hard enough, someone in my family would be proud of me. Instead, I got lectures at every family dinner. Jessica's just too sensitive for law enforcement, Uncle Mike would say, loud enough for the whole table to hear. Not tough enough. She'll never cut it. My mother, sitting with her hands folded just right, would nod and slide a check across the table to my cousin Dylan, who had already failed out of college twice but somehow still had a future. I was the black sheep, the girl who questioned too much, asked why our family's construction business always seemed to have workers disappear after accidents, why the numbers in the books never quite added up when I helped with summer accounting. Family loyalty comes first, Uncle Mike would tell me, pulling me aside with a heavy hand on my shoulder. Don't embarrass us, Jess. Don't bring trouble home. Looking back, it's almost funny how hard I tried to win their approval. I applied to every federal law enforcement program I could find. DA, FBI, Marshals, you name it. Each application was a secret. I hid acceptance letters under my mattress, drafted personal statements in the dark. But every background check required a reference. And every time, I hit the same wall. How do you get a reference from a family that expects you to fail? I remember the exact moment I stopped trying. It was a Friday night. My cousin Dylan, beer in hand, barely able to keep his eyes open, mocked me in front of the whole family. Jess has always got some sob story, he slurred. She's not cut out for this kind of work. Uncle Mike agreed, loud and final. She's weak. The world needs leaders, not girls who cry about accidents. They didn't know it yet, but that was the last time I let their words decide who I was. 2 years later, they thought I was gone for good. They told the neighbors I was in rehab, suffering from mental breakdowns. But I was 2 states away, at the U.S. Marshals Training Academy in Georgia, running obstacle courses, learning how to fire a Glock with pinpoint accuracy, cramming legal procedures late into the night. I graduated second in my class, one of only 3 women. My family never knew. I let them believe I was lost. It was easier that way. Safer, too, because the marshals had recruited me specifically because of my last name. For years, federal agencies had watched Carter construction. Too many accidents. Too many missing workers. Too much money changing hands, always just out of reach. They needed someone who could move through family gatherings, attend business meetings, ask questions no one else dared to ask. They needed a Carter who looked too soft to ever be a threat. Now, after decades of silence, I'm coming home in a way I never imagined. The case files in my hands detail everything. 3 years of undercover work, every wiretap, every hush money payment, every name. 18 dead, all preventable. 18 families destroyed, all so Uncle Mike could buy another vacation house in Florida. Every page of evidence is a piece of the life I left behind, and the proof that I was never the failure they claimed. Tonight, I'm still the ghost. But tomorrow, I'll take the stand. And for the first time in my life, I won't be the one hiding in the shadows. People say you never truly leave your family. But what if your family is the thing holding you back? I grew up believing that blood was everything, that loyalty meant silence, and silence meant survival. In Houston, the Carter name opened doors and closed them just as quickly. My grandfather, a big Jim Carter, built Carter Construction from the ground up after returning from Vietnam, pouring concrete and pride into every highway, strip mall, and subdivision from Galveston to Dallas. By the time I was born, the Carter empire was already sprawling. I remember the first time I realized something was wrong. I was 12, sitting at the dinner table, listening to grown-ups talk in half-finished sentences and code. There was always laughter, always too much beer, always someone who wasn't coming back to work after a bad fall or a bad luck. My mother never let me ask questions. She'd just smile tightly and say, some things aren't our business, Jess." But the questions kept coming. Why did men disappear after accidents? Why did my Uncle Mike pay for silence in cash? Why did my cousin Dylan always have a new car, even when he wasn't working? I started noticing little things, extra sets of books, envelopes of money in my grandfather's safe, whispers about affixers and immigration trouble. By 16, I was working summers in the office, just to keep you busy, and my mother said. I did payroll, answered phones, even helped with simple accounting. And every so often, I'd stumble across something that didn't add up, a check for a worker I'd never met, a payout that seemed far too large for a severance, or a pile of safety reports marked a lost. Each time, someone would catch me looking too closely. "That's adult stuff, honey," Uncle Mike would grin. "Stick to your chores." It was an ugly lesson. Don't ask. Don't tell. Don't get in the way. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was the only one who cared. My family saw concern as weakness, and empathy as a liability. "You're too soft for this world," and my mother would sigh, as if it hurt her to say it. "Better to keep your head down, Jessica." I tried. God, I tried. I kept my head down all through high school, worked double shifts, and still managed a new perfect GPA. But my dreams were always somewhere else. I'd sit on the back porch at night, listening to police sirens in the humid dark, wondering if there was another life out there, one where honesty was rewarded, not punished. When I turned 18, I announced that I was applying to the police academy. The room went silent, as if I declared war. Uncle Mike scoffed. "Why waste your time? You'll never make it. Too much book learning, not enough backbone." Dylan laughed, already half drunk. "Cops don't get rich, Jess. Construction does." But I was stubborn. I worked 2 jobs, took community college classes at night, and sent in my application. My mother never spoke about it again, but I'd catch her watching me, worried, as if waiting for me to fail. Then came the day the applications started coming back. DA, Marshals, local Houston PD, they were all interested. But every program wanted references. Family references, if possible. The words haunted me. I couldn't ask my family for help, not when I knew what I knew. Not when I'd already started keeping a secret file of my own, full of numbers and names and questions nobody wanted answered. I thought about blowing the whistle, calling someone, anyone. But I was 18 and terrified. If I told the truth, would anyone believe me? Or would I just end up as another a bad luck story, quietly erased? So, I played along. I let them think I was struggling. When they cut off my college funds, I found scholarships. When they stopped inviting me home for dinner, I stopped coming. When rumors started about bad choices and bad company, I didn't argue. It was easier for everyone that way. Sometimes I wonder if my family ever missed me. If my mother ever looked at an empty chair at Thanksgiving and thought, maybe I was wrong. Maybe they were too busy, too invested in their own myths. I tried to keep some small part of myself alive, joined a local boxing gym, buried myself in crime novels, volunteered at the community center. The world outside my family felt bigger and scarier, but it was also mine. Then, one night after class, I got a call. "Jessica Carter? This is Special Agent Brooks with the U.S. Marshals. We'd like to meet." I almost hung up, sure it was a prank. But curiosity and desperation got the better of me. That meeting changed everything. The Marshals needed someone with inside knowledge of construction accounting, someone who understood how the old families moved money, someone who could blend in and listen. They knew about my grades, my jobs, my questions. "You want to help people, right?" Agent Brooks asked. "Here's your chance." The only catch? Total secrecy. I couldn't tell anyone, not friends, not teachers, and especially not family. I had to vanish. My story would become whatever my family wanted to believe. The hardest part wasn't disappearing. It was accepting that the people who should have protected me would never forgive me for leaving. That, in their eyes, I'd always be the dropout, the weak one, the ghost who never measured up. But I said yes. And the day I boarded a bus to Georgia, I knew there was no going back. My first months at the U.S. Marshals Training Academy in Georgia were a blur of exhaustion and transformation. The days started before sunrise with runs through the dew-soaked woods, followed by hours of weapons training, lore classes, and tactical scenarios that left my body bruised and my mind sharper than ever before. We learned how to move unseen, how to read a room, how to size up danger with a glance. It was a world built on trust and secrecy, a world where hesitation could get you killed. For the first time, my questions weren't a liability. They were a skill. I realized I could see patterns others missed, connect dots in paperwork, hear the tension in a suspect's voice over the radio. I pushed myself harder than I'd ever thought possible, finishing second in my class, just behind a former Marine twice my size. I wore that accomplishment like invisible armor. Graduation day came and went with no family in the audience, no proud faces or homecoming banners. But I didn't need them anymore. The Marshalls became my new family, tough, loyal, a little bit crazy, but bound together by purpose instead of blood. My first assignment wasn't glamorous, just shadowing senior deputies on fugitive pickups in Atlanta. But soon enough, my background in construction bookkeeping caught the attention of an interagency task force investigating corruption in Southern infrastructure projects. The FBI, the DEA, Homeland Security, they all had cases that overlapped with the sort of old-school, family-run companies I'd grown up around. People who could hide money, workers, and secrets in plain sight. My ability to blend in, to play the quiet niece, the invisible girl at family parties, made me the perfect candidate for deep cover. At 24, barely out of the academy, I took my first real undercover assignment, posing as a bookkeeper for a small outfit with rumored mob ties. The nights were long and lonely. There were months when I didn't sleep in my own bed, when I ate greasy takeout in borrowed apartments and changed my hair color every 6 weeks. The job took everything: trust, nerves, and the willingness to be hated by people who'd once called you family. I learned fast that in undercover work, your best weapon wasn't a gun, it was patience. You had to watch, listen, ask just the right questions, and never, ever let your real self slip through the cracks. Sometimes, I'd look in the mirror and barely recognize my own eyes. Harder now, less trusting, but more alive than ever before. The hardest nights were the quiet ones. No sirens, no emergencies, just the sound of your own doubts echoing through an empty apartment. That's when I thought about the life I left behind. My mother's awkward hugs, Uncle Mike's booming voice, the scent of sawdust and summer sweat that always hung over our backyard barbecues. But I knew what I was fighting for. Every paycheck I deposited, every piece of evidence I logged, brought me one step closer to giving the truth a voice. Years passed in this way, each assignment a little riskier than the last. I worked on trafficking cases in Miami, white-collar fraud in Chicago, and, every so often, a lead would pop up about Carter Construction back in Texas. At first, I tried not to let it distract me. But the truth is, it haunted me. My family's name kept coming up on wiretaps, in coded emails, in rumors whispered between cops over midnight coffee. I kept my distance, letting other agents handle it. I told myself I was too close, too compromised. I lied to myself. One rainy night in Atlanta, a fellow agent, Detective Morgan, a woman with a sharp tongue and a softer heart than she'd ever admit, found me staring at an old photo of my family. "You still thinking about going back?" she asked. I shrugged, tucking the photo away. Some nights, I wonder if they'd even recognize me. She laughed. "That's not the question. The real question is, would you recognize them?" That stuck with me. Each year I spent in law enforcement, the distance between who I was and who I'd become grew wider. I missed birthdays, funerals, weddings. I let my family believe I was lost because it kept them safe and kept my cover alive. By the time I turned 30, my mother had stopped calling. My cousin Dylan sent one last email, cryptic, angry, full of blame, and then nothing. I buried my sadness in work, in the knowledge that every case I cracked made someone else's world safer, even if it cost me my own. Then, 3 years ago, everything changed. The Marshalls called me in on a case that had too many red flags to ignore. A string of accidents at Texas job sites, money moving offshore, whistleblowers vanishing. Every clue pointed back to Houston. To Carter Construction. To the family that had spent my whole life pretending I didn't exist. They needed someone inside, someone who could walk into family dinners, look Uncle Mike in the eye, and play dumb just long enough to catch him off guard. Someone who could make the ghosts of the past pay for the pain they'd caused. It was the hardest decision I ever made. But I said yes. Because justice matters. Because truth matters. And because sometimes, the only way to fix what's broken is to tear it all down and start again. Coming back to Texas was harder than I'd imagined. Everything looked smaller. Childhood streets now cluttered with new construction, old haunts replaced by luxury condos and chain restaurants. Houston felt like a stranger, the humid air thicker with secrets than ever. I drove by my mother's old house before heading to the safe house, heart pounding, watching the porch light flicker on at dusk. A fresh coat of paint, a different car in the driveway. She'd moved on. Or maybe she just wanted to erase any trace of the daughter she thought she'd lost. The FBI and marshals had planned every detail of my new identity. Jessica Andrews, forensic accountant and a consultant for Carter Construction, brought in by the board to review safety procedures and worker contracts. They gave me a rental car, a burner phone, a set of ID cards so perfect I almost believed them myself. The cover story was simple. I was an outsider with just enough family connection to be plausible, someone no one would look at too closely. My first day at Carter Construction was surreal. The offices hadn't changed in years. Same brass letters on the glass door, same faint smell of coffee and old files. Dylan met me at the front desk, all charm and suspicion. Jessica, her? Didn't think I'd see you back in these parts. He looked me over with the easy arrogance of someone who never expects consequences. Nice to see you too, Dylan, I replied, keeping my voice friendly, eyes open for tells. Heard the company's grown since I left. He laughed. You could say that. Uncle Mike's got half the city in his pocket now. Or so he likes to think. His words were a careless boast, but his eyes flicked toward the security camera over the door. They gave me a small office overlooking the warehouse lot. Trucks loaded with supplies rolled in and out, workers with hard hats and tired eyes moving like clockwork. I watched, noting which foreman barked orders and which simply watched the clock. My first assignment was to review injury reports for the past 5 years. The files were thick, too thick. I saw patterns immediately, repeat incidents swept under the rug, accident victims rehired at a satellite locations, errant cash withdrawals matching suspicious severance payments. At the first staff meeting, Uncle Mike held court. He was heavier now, his voice more gruff, but the old menace was still there. We're a family here, he announced. In family means loyalty. Remember that. He introduced me as a consultant, downplaying the connection. She'll be helping us keep our books tight and usher off our backs. His smile was tight, his handshake harder than I remembered. The investigation moved slowly. Each day, I collected evidence, signed forms, lists of workers who had simply disappeared, copies of bank transfers, coded notes. I'd type up encrypted reports late at night, sending them to my handler. Sometimes, after a long day, I'd drive past the neighborhoods where I used to play, fighting the urge to knock on a door and pretend I could go home. But I couldn't forget why I was here. The more I saw, the angrier I became. In the break room, a crew leader named Marcos confided that 3 of his guys had left after a bad fall. No severance, no insurance, just a warning to keep quiet if you want to stay in this country. One woman, Anna, cleaned the office after hours. I learned she lost her husband on a job site the year before. His name was in the file, marked and no further action. Sometimes I lay awake at night, staring at the ceiling, wondering if I was doing enough. Was it enough to gather evidence, or should I confront Mike and Dylan right then and there? The law said wait. Build a case. Be thorough. But my heart burned for the people no one else would help. Family dinners were the worst. Dylan would brag about the company's profits. Uncle Mike would toast it to hard work and tradition. And my mother, her hair grayer, her eyes still sharp, would quietly ask about my recovery, as if daring me to break character. I played my part, nodding, letting them believe I was grateful for a second chance. Every smile felt like a betrayal, every laugh a little bit of my soul chipped away. One night, after dinner, my mother found me in the backyard. The cicadas buzzed, and the smell of cut grass made me ache for a simpler time. She placed a hand on my shoulder. I know you're trying, Jess. Maybe this time, you'll find your place. I wanted to tell her the truth, to admit everything, how I'd left not out of weakness, but out of necessity, how every day I spent away from them was an act of courage, not shame. But I couldn't risk it. Not yet. At work, pressure mounted. Mike's temper grew short. Dylan's jokes grew crueler. It was obvious they were hiding something bigger. Money was being funneled through shell companies, payrolls padded with ghost employees, hush payments to families who'd lost loved ones on site. I pieced together the puzzle, each clue another nail in the coffin of the Carter legacy. At the same time, I built quiet alliances. I'd slip extra money to Anna. Give Marcos contacts for workers' rights groups. Help one young laborer get a ride home when ICE was rumored to be in the neighborhood. These small kindnesses made me feel more like myself, even as I played the undercover role. Sometimes, when I locked the office late at night, I'd look out over the city, wondering what would be left when all this was over. I missed my old life, the camaraderie of the marshals, the thrill of a bust gone right. I missed the certainty that comes from knowing exactly who the enemy is. Here, the lines were blurred. Family was the enemy, but family was also history, and love, and 100 small memories I couldn't erase. Still, every morning, I pulled on my badge, hidden, for now, and reminded myself, this isn't about revenge. It's about justice. And when the truth comes out, I'll finally be free. Days blurred into weeks. Each morning I'd walk into Carter Construction with a notepad and a practiced smile, pretending to be just another numbers person. But at night, I was a cop again, recording notes, cataloging files, assembling the kind of case that would take down not just a company, but an entire criminal network. Every conversation, every sidelong glance, mattered. I learned who in the office could be trusted. Rita, the payroll clerk, who slipped me lists of ghost employees with trembling hands, and who could not. Dylan's best friend Jerry, who had a habit of eluding accident reports and warning off injured workers. I developed a routine, reviewing fake invoices in the conference room by day, sending encrypted updates to the task force at midnight. The human cost became impossible to ignore. Anna, the cleaning lady, confided that her landlord had doubled her rent. Her youngest son had stopped speaking since his father's accident. Marcos, the foreman, lost 2 more crew members to a workplace incident in less than a month. Each time, I documented everything: names, times, hush payments, veiled threats. Each time, I wondered, how many more would there be before we could finally move? As the months passed, the danger grew. Mike's paranoia turned meetings into interrogations. "Anyone here got a problem with loyalty?" he'd bark, eyes narrowing on the staff. The air in the office changed, tense, brittle, like the moments before a summer storm. Sometimes, I'd catch Dylan watching me too long, suspicion flickering behind his lazy grin. Once, he cornered me in the parking lot. "You're asking a lot of questions, Jess. Still a little too curious, aren't you?" I kept my tone light. "Just trying to do my job, cousin." But I never shook the feeling that my cover was wearing thin. Pressure from the task force ramped up too. My FBI contact, Agent Lopez, called daily now. "We're almost there," she'd say, her voice taut. "You've built the evidence. But we need something irrefutable, bank records, a confession, anything that ties your uncle directly to the debts and the cartel money. Once we go, there's no turning back." Every day felt like walking a wire over a canyon. The longer I stayed, the more likely I'd slip, or worse, put someone else in danger. More than once, I considered pulling out. But then I'd see Anna's haunted eyes, or watch Marcos rub his hands together anxiously as he counted his crew at the end of a shift. I couldn't leave them behind. Late one evening, as I was organizing files, Rita appeared in my doorway. Her hands shook as she set down a folder. "Don't let them see I gave you this. Please." Inside, payroll sheets, off-the-books accounts, a paper trail of hush payments and laundered cash routed through shell companies, enough to make the case airtight. My heart hammered with relief and dread. This was what we needed. This was the trigger. The takedown had to be perfect. I met with Agent Lopez in an unmarked car 2 blocks from the site. "When we move, you need to disappear," she said. "We'll relocate the families. Protective custody for witnesses. You'll testify at the federal courthouse in Dallas. Are you ready?" I wasn't sure what a ready felt like. I hadn't seen my real name on an official badge in years. I hadn't allowed myself to think about the fallout, my mother's face, the news headlines. The moment Uncle Mike would realize who had finally stopped him. But there was no turning back. The next week, the operation unfolded like a scene from a movie. Federal agents swarmed the Carter construction offices at dawn. Mike was led away in handcuffs, face red and eyes wide with disbelief. Dylan tried to bluff. "You can't do this. We're family." But the evidence was stacked too high to matter. The workers, silent at first, soon found their voices. Anna hugged me and sobbed. Marcos shook my hand with a grip that nearly broke my fingers. For a moment, the years of undercover life seemed worth it. For a moment, I was just a cop again, doing the right thing, no matter the cost. Testifying in court was surreal. I took the stand under my real name, Detective Jessica Carter, Dallas Police Department, Federal Task Force. My mother sat in the back row, face pale and stricken. Uncle Mike avoided my eyes. Dylan looked like a man waking from a bad dream. I told the truth, every word. About the bribes, the threats, the deadly indifference. About the years spent hiding, the families destroyed by greed and arrogance. The courtroom was silent, every person listening to a story that was as much about betrayal as it was about justice. The defense tried to paint me as vengeful, bitter, out for revenge on her family. But I stood firm. My job was to protect the vulnerable. It didn't matter that the abusers shared my last name. When it was over, I walked out into the Texas heat feeling both lighter and older. My undercover life was finished. The Carter family dynasty was gone, its power broken, its money seized. The workers got compensation, and Anna's son started speaking again. But the scars remained. My mother wrote one letter, 3 pages of sorrow and confusion. I haven't answered it yet. Some nights, I still see the faces of my family in dreams, angry, confused, lost. Other nights, I see the workers we helped, smiling for the first time in years. And I remember, sometimes you have to break your own heart to do what's right. The morning after the verdict, headlines screamed my family's shame across Texas and beyond. A Carter dynasty brought down from the inside, and the undercover detective exposes Texas construction tycons. My name trended online, interviews requests poured in from news stations, and my phone vibrated so much I finally left it switched off. I'd spent years working in the shadows. Suddenly, everyone wanted my story. But I wasn't ready to tell it. Not to strangers, not even to friends back in law enforcement. The spotlight felt harsh, more suffocating than the years of secrecy. I checked into a hotel under an old alias, letting the dust settle. The FBI sent me daily updates. Uncle Mike denied everything, blaming a rogue employees. Dylan pled guilty, hoping for leniency. My mother's letter arrived at the station, written in a careful hand I hadn't seen since high school. Jessica, it began. I don't know who you are anymore. I don't know if I ever did. All I know is I loved you, even when I didn't understand you. If you ever want to talk, I'm here. I read those lines over and over, searching for anger, but feeling only a deep exhaustion. I wanted to believe her, but the words couldn't undo the years she'd let me disappear, couldn't erase all the holidays spent alone, all the time she'd nodded along with Uncle Mike's lies. Maybe forgiveness would come one day. Maybe not. The investigation's fallout rippled through the city. Carter Construction was seized, assets liquidated. Proceeds went to the 18 families who'd lost loved ones. Anna's name topped the list. I attended the first victims' compensation meeting under police escort, slipping in quietly at the back. When the crowd saw me, a hush fell. Some looked grateful, others wary, a few angry. I understood all of it. After the meeting, Anna found me by the door. She held my hands tight, tears in her eyes. "You saved my family," as she whispered. "My boy talks again. He laughs. You gave us a future." I squeezed her hands back, swallowing a lump in my throat. "You deserved better, Anna. All of you did." She smiled. "You deserve peace, Jessica." The community's reaction was more complicated. Some people cheered, grateful that justice had finally come for the Carter name. Others saw me as a traitor, a daughter who turned on her own. My old high school teacher left a note on my car. "I always knew you'd make a difference, Jess." But at the grocery store, an old neighbor averted his eyes. I accepted both reactions. I wasn't looking for heroism or revenge. Only the truth. Back at the hotel, I met regularly with the FBI's Victim Support Unit, helping the relocated workers settle into new lives. I wrote job referrals, signed off on school applications, and arranged therapy for kids traumatized by years of fear. The work was hard, but it kept me grounded, tethered to the reason I'd risked everything in the first place. The police department in Dallas offered me my old job back, promotions, awards, speaking engagements. I turned them down, at least for now. I needed time to heal, to breathe. My old partner, Detective Morgan, called from Atlanta. "You're still you, Jess," as she said. "You did the right thing. Don't let the world write your ending." Her words reminded me that my story wasn't just about justice. It was about survival, about making choices no one else could make for me. One afternoon, I drove past my childhood home. The windows were dark, the yard overgrown. I parked across the street, remembering simpler times, bike rides, lemonade stands, the night I promised myself I'd escape. The house felt both foreign and familiar, a monument to the life I left behind. I wondered if my mother was inside, waiting for a knock that would never come. I thought about all the things I'd wanted to say. I'm sorry. I tried. I became someone I'm proud of, even if you're not. But I kept driving. A few weeks later, Anna called to invite me to her son's birthday. I hesitated, but she insisted. "You're family to us now." The party was small, just a handful of families and a cake decorated with bright blue frosting. Marcos grilled burgers. The kids played tag in the yard. I sat quietly, letting the warmth of their laughter wash over me. When Anna's boy handed me a piece of cake, grinning shyly, something inside me healed, a piece of my heart I thought I'd lost for good. That night, as I left, Anna hugged me one more time. "Whatever comes next, you have a home here," she said. I believed her. Slowly, I began to build a new routine. Early mornings walking Texas streets, quiet evenings with a good book, phone calls with Detective Morgan, counseling sessions for myself and, sometimes, for the families I'd helped save. I learned that peace doesn't come all at once. It arrives in small moments, often when you least expect it. I never stopped missing the idea of family. But I learned to love the one I found, built on truth, not blood. I realized I could forgive myself for the choices I'd made, even if the world couldn't. And I began to hope, for the first time in a long time, that maybe the future could be something I could choose for myself. Weeks turned into months. The case faded from the headlines, replaced by new scandals and disasters, but for the families whose lives had been shattered, the process of rebuilding had only just begun. So had mine. I moved into a modest apartment on the edge of Dallas, close enough to the city to feel its pulse but quiet enough that I could finally sleep. No more burner phones, no more aliases. At first, I didn't know what to do with myself. No urgent calls, no double life to protect. My days filled up with the small tasks of ordinary living, buying groceries, fixing a leaky faucet, learning the names of neighbors who waved shyly as I passed. What surprised me most was how often I thought about the families. I couldn't shake their stories, Anna's quiet strength, Marcos's dignity, the hopeful, uncertain laughter of their children. I saw them at church picnics, at job fairs, at neighborhood block parties. The gratitude in their eyes humbled me, but I soon realized they wanted more than just a thank you. They wanted to know who I was when I wasn't a detective, when I wasn't the one who brought justice. Slowly, we became friends. Anna insisted I join them for Sunday dinners. Her son, Daniel, called me a Miss Jess and proudly showed me his schoolwork. Marcos helped me patch a fence behind my apartment, laughing when I bent the nails. "You may be tough, Jessica, but you're no carpenter," he joked, and for the first time in years, I laughed, really laughed, without feeling guilty. The police department sent more invitations, asking if I'd consider returning. I thanked them and said maybe someday. But right now, I needed to heal, not just for myself, but for the people I cared about. Some nights, though, the old restlessness crept in. I'd walk the city until my feet ached, haunted by dreams of sirens and gunfire. I wondered if I would ever be able to let go of the feeling that danger was always just around the corner. One warm April evening, I found myself outside my mother's new house. The yard was tidy, the porch painted a soft blue. I hesitated at the gate, heart pounding, unsure if I should knock. In the end, I stood there, hidden in the dusk, watching as she came out to water her flowers. She moved slower than I remembered, her face drawn with sadness I finally recognized as regret. I thought about all the things I wanted to say. Why didn't you call? Why didn't you fight for me? But I knew that some wounds run too deep for words. I turned away before she could see me, letting my goodbye hang unspoken in the humid night. Instead, I poured my energy into helping the survivors. I volunteered at job fairs, wrote letters of recommendation, coached Daniel through math homework, and helped Anna apply for a small business grant. When she won, she hugged me, tears in her eyes. "We couldn't have done it without you," as she whispered. It wasn't true, but I let her believe it. Sometimes what people need most is the hope that someone believes in them. I took up running again, this time for pleasure instead of escape. Most mornings I ran through Trinity River Park, watching the sunrise burn away the fog. I rediscovered the simple joys of freedom, feeling the ground under my feet, breathing in clean air, watching the city slowly wake up. One morning, as I was stretching near a playground, Daniel ran up, waving a flyer. "Miss Jess, Mom says you should come to our barbecue this weekend. You have to." I smiled and promised I would. It struck me then how easily the word of family has slipped into conversations with these people, how naturally it felt to belong. My old partner, Detective Morgan, came to visit on her way through Dallas. We sat at a diner, picking up pancakes and swapping war stories. She studied me with her keen, no-nonsense gaze. "You look good, Jess. Softer. Happier." I shrugged, unsure how to answer. "You ever think about what's next?" she asked. "Sometimes. Maybe I'll go back to the department. Maybe I'll teach. Or maybe..." She grinned. "Maybe you'll just live. That's allowed, you know." We parted with a long hug and a promise to stay in touch. For the first time, I really meant it. Spring bled into summer. The Carter case receded into the city's collective memory, but its impact lingered. I saw it in the way Anna stood taller, in Marcos's easy laugh, in the trust growing in Daniel's eyes. I saw it in myself too, in the way I no longer flinched at every loud noise, in the peace that finally settled in my chest. I didn't need a badge to protect people anymore. I didn't need a courtroom to prove my worth. I just needed to show up, every day, for the people who counted on me. One evening, Anna said quietly, "A family isn't just who you're born to, Jess. It's who you fight for, and who fights for you." I nodded, feeling tears threaten. She was right. For the first time in my life, I knew what it meant to come home. By summer's end, the routines that once felt alien began to feel like a kind of home. Sunday dinners at Anna's, weekend barbecues in the park, afternoons spent mentoring Daniel or sitting quietly with Marcos as he learned to trust that life could be safe again. I found myself savoring the rituals I used to take for granted: morning coffee on my tiny balcony, walks to the corner store, the slow return of laughter to my voice. Yet, even in this new beginning, the past echoed. Every few weeks, a letter arrived from my mother. Some short, some rambling, all tinged with sorrow and longing. At first, I tucked them away unopened. It felt too soon, too raw to read apologies or explanations for a history neither of us could rewrite. But gradually, curiosity and hope got the better of me. I sat down one evening and read them all, line by trembling line. I miss you, Jess. I'm sorry for not seeing how brave you were, even when you were a child. You always wanted to help people. I wish I'd fought for you harder. I'm proud of what you did, even if it broke us apart. Her words didn't heal every wound, but they began to close the deepest ones. I wrote back, carefully. I'm doing well, Mom. I found good people here. I hope you're okay too. Maybe someday we can talk. That a someday came sooner than I expected. On a soft September afternoon, my mother called. Her voice was hesitant, older, but undeniably her. Jessica? It's me. I just wanted to hear your voice. See if you're all right. I could have ended the call quickly, but something in her tone stopped me. We spoke quietly, awkwardly at first, then with more ease. She told me about her new garden, her loneliness, her regrets. I told her about Anna, Daniel, the work I was doing now. It wasn't a full reconciliation, but it was a beginning. The past would always be part of us, but maybe it didn't have to be all there was. Professionally, I found a new direction. I started volunteering at a legal aid clinic, helping immigrant workers navigate contracts and understand their rights. I ran workshops on workplace safety and whistleblower protections, drawing on my undercover experience. For the first time, my background, my pain, my loss, felt like an asset, something I could use to make sure others never faced what I had. Anna became my strongest supporter, spreading the word through the community. Soon, our little clinic was packed with people seeking help, and I recruited friends from my law enforcement days to offer pro bono guidance. The city council invited me to speak about labor reform. I stood at the podium, nervous but resolved, and told the truth, not just about the Carter scandal, but about the quiet courage of survivors. The more I gave, the more I received. The respect in people's eyes replaced the shame I'd carried so long. I realized I no longer needed to prove myself to anyone. I was living proof that it was possible to build something strong from broken pieces. With Daniel, I learned to hope again. He overcame his fears, began excelling in school, and joined a youth soccer league. At every game, Anna and I cheered from the sidelines, laughing until our cheeks hurt. When Daniel scored his first goal, he ran straight to me, arms wide. "Did you see that, Miss Jess? Did you see?" "I saw," I said, my voice thick with pride. "You were amazing." I was healing, too. Nights grew easier. The nightmares faded. Sometimes, I caught myself daydreaming about the future, maybe teaching, maybe traveling, maybe, just maybe, falling in love someday, when I was ready. For the first time, I allowed myself to believe in possibility. One evening, as autumn leaves drifted down outside Anna's porch, she brought out a photo album. There were pictures of family, birthdays, old friends. She added a new one, me, Daniel, Marcos, all smiling around a dinner table. She wrote under it, "A family, chosen and earned." I sat with that feeling a long time after everyone else had gone to bed. All my life, I'd chased acceptance from people who could never give it. Now, I understood. Home isn't where you're from. It's where you're seen, where your scars are honored and your strengths matter. Family isn't always blood, it's who keeps showing up. The city changed, but so did I. I kept running, teaching, working in the clinic. My old partner Morgan called now and then, her voice a thread to the past I no longer feared. Sometimes, late at night, I'd get a text from Anna, "We love you. Come by any time." I learned to love myself, too. Not the detective or the ghost or the Carter name, but Jessica, survivor, advocate, friend. It was enough. And as the year drew to a close, I realized that starting over hadn't just given me a new life. It had given me back my own. The first anniversary of the Carter trial arrived on a crisp, clear morning. I woke early and walked through the still sleepy city, letting the rhythm of my footsteps remind me of all the ground I'd covered, literally and figuratively, in the past year. Dallas was still bustling, always in a hurry, but I moved at my own pace now. I carried no badge, no secrets, no shame. That afternoon, Anna and Marcos organized a celebration at the community center, a potluck, music, and laughter. I sat in the sun beside Daniel, helping him with a puzzle as people gathered around us. When Anna raised her glass for a toast, the room quieted. To Jessica, as she said, her voice trembling with warmth. For reminding us that family is what you make it. For teaching us to stand up, and for standing by us even when it cost everything. The room erupted in applause. I looked down, cheeks burning, but my heart light. This wasn't the audience I once imagined. No headlines, no medals, no grand gestures. But it was real. It mattered. And for the first time, I let myself feel proud. After the party, I slipped outside to catch my breath. The sun was setting, painting the city gold. I thought of the road that led me here, the loneliness of my undercover days, the sting of betrayal, the long months of healing. I remembered the families I'd helped, the lives we'd changed together, the courage it took to break from a past. For years, I believed I could only ever be two things, cop or outcast, Carter or nothing. Now, I knew better. I started teaching part-time at a local college that fall, Criminal Justice 101, a handful of eager students, some fresh from high school, others hoping for a second chance. On the first day, a young woman lingered after class. "Is it true," she asked shyly, "that you turned in your own family?" I smiled, gentle. "It's true." But the harder part was learning to forgive myself for surviving. Justice isn't always clean. Sometimes it's just the best choice you can make with what you're given. She nodded, thoughtful. "I want to be like you," as she said. For a moment, I saw myself at 19, hungry for meaning, longing to belong. I put a hand on her shoulder. "Don't be like me," I said softly. "Be better. Make your own choices. That's the bravest thing you can do." My mother called more often now. Our conversations were still careful, but each one chipped away at old bitterness. One Sunday, she invited me over for dinner. Her house was small, cozy, filled with plants and sun. We didn't talk about the past, not directly, but she made my favorite casserole and we laughed over silly memories. When I left, she hugged me tighter than she had since I was a child. "I'm glad you found your way back," as she whispered. I knew forgiveness would be a process, maybe a lifelong one. But I'd started to believe we could get there. And that was enough. I stayed close to Anna, Daniel, and the community that had become my own. I helped Anna open her small business, a cleaning service that treated its workers fairly, paid a living wage, offered health benefits. She put up a photo of the two of us on her office wall, captioned, "Our real beginning." At Daniel's soccer games, I became the loudest fan on the sidelines. "You have to cheer for yourself too, Miss Jess," he teased me once, and I promised I would. Late one night, after a long day at the clinic, I wrote in my journal, the habit of reflection lingering from years of undercover work. It took losing everything to understand what I was really searching for. Not approval. Not justice. Not even peace. I wanted the freedom to choose my own life. To make mistakes, to grow, to love and be loved, no matter how imperfectly. I used to think my story was about breaking away from family. Now I see it's about building one, from trust, from truth, from the grit to keep going even when it hurts. Sometimes courage is just coming back, day after day, and showing up for the people who count on you. Sometimes it's forgiving yourself for all the ways you weren't perfect. Sometimes it's daring to hope that you're enough, right now, as you are. As the city lights blinked on, I felt a quiet certainty settle inside me. My story wasn't about the Carter name or the pain of the past. It was about the future, the lives touched, the kindness spread, the chance to start over, again and again, no matter how many times you fall. I turned out the light, ready for tomorrow. Whatever it brought, I knew now I could face it. Because I had finally come home.